Hello and welcome to session 3, day 2 of MoteCon 2023. How's everyone doing? Happy Saturday. I hope some of you were able to join the sessions we had yesterday. We had an incredible lineup led by two of our amazing Mote ambassador leaders, Alex Isaacs and Brittany Hall. And today we have a third of our incredible Mote ambassador leaders to host this third session. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Rebecca Erin Kominaki. Rebecca Erin Kominaki is Erin to her friends, and she is based out of Lynchburg City Schools in Virginia. She's a Mote ambassador leader, as I mentioned, and currently works as an instructional tech coach and special education leader. So without further ado, welcome, Erin.
Hey, thanks for having me, Will. Happy Saturday. It's great to be here.
How's your Saturday going so far?
It's going great. I actually spent the morning, I was unable to watch live MoteCon day 1. So I actually spent my morning with a cup of coffee and I watched the recordings from day 1. And so it got me pumped up to be here now.
Awesome. Yeah, I should say they are. I think we still got the live streams available. We're going to be sectioning them up. So every one of these sessions is going to be available to watch offline and sort of at convenience. So if you find a session, you're enjoying it, but maybe you have to step out for a few minutes, we will have these up on our Mote Learning Zone in the next few days. So that's a great resource for everybody to know about. But I am going to step away, leave you to it, and I'll be back again to help with Q&A. I would say anybody in the chat, please feel free to introduce yourself. Please ask questions. This is intended to be an interactive session. So we really look forward to your comments and questions. So Erin, I'll see you in a bit.
Great. Thank you. Alrighty. So like Will said, my name's Erin Kominaki. It's a mouthful if you include that Rebecca in there. And this session's going to be focused on how to harness the power of Mote as an instructional coach. So I went from a special education teacher to a instructional coach, and I just felt like my world was jumbled. I didn't know upside from downside. And I have been using Mote as a special education teacher, and I loved it as a resource. And I wanted to continue to use it and promote it to teachers, but I really didn't know how my first year. And so it took me a little bit of time to get comfortable with how to use Mote as a coach, because everything I had seen out there, it was really for teachers and students, but I wanted to continue to model it because it was such a great tool that I think everyone should be using and everyone should know about. So over the course of several years, I started to use Mote, and I used it first for accessibility and feedback, just like I did as a teacher. And then I began to think of new ways to do it. I really notes on the go, collaborative planning. So I want to show you, if you are a coach or looking to move into that role, how Mote can still help you in this new role that you may have. So the first thing you do as a coach when you get started with your school year is all the rave of a coaching menu and how you need this instant connection. And if you're a coach that travels between multiple schools and multiple grade levels, it can sometimes feel really hard to have a true connection with teachers that you may only see a couple times every other week. So I really use the QR code feature as part of my coaching menu so that teachers could hear my voice. Because sometimes I just had to send out emails or documents, but before I even met people. So I wanted that instant connection. And Brittany yesterday in her session actually gave this little highlight about how you can, if you choose not to use a QR code, but you record audio, how you can replace that little audio icon with an image. And I love this. And I think this is something that I would do in the future, is to make even a greater connection with my picture and my voice. So I really shout out to Brittany's session yesterday. You can go check it out. So then after you make this connection as a coach and you have your coaching menu, last year, I don't know about you all, but one of my schools had 40 new teachers. And these teachers came from all different backgrounds, many of them like a second career path. And so really trying to get them into classroom procedures and procedures that worked. I felt like I was running around like a headless chicken, I guess is the saying, right? I could not support all of the staff in multiple schools. And so I was like, you know what? I can do this asynchronously. I can provide them audio examples or feedback on a procedure that they have told me about asynchronously. I can provide feedback. And Mote really, because it embeds in all of Google Suites, I found that to be the best way to not only provide examples if a new teacher wasn't sure about a procedure they wanted to do in class, or to provide feedback. And I got a lot of positive response from this from teachers. They really liked this new approach. And as a coach, a big part of our job is modeling. And so I constantly wanted to model accessibility. And so in our staff handbook, where there were larger reading passages, I used some Mote audio and put the icon there so that teachers could listen to the parts of the handbook. And then the idea there is that they would get to thinking, hey, what's this icon? If they were unfamiliar with Mote, they would say, hey, what's this icon? Oh, it's providing this audio response or reading. I wonder how I could use that in my classroom. And again, the Google Forms, a part of my job is Chromebook breakage and filling out Google Forms. And so part of the response there was a question about other concerns, and students or teachers, sometimes it was easier rather than like choosing A, B, or C is wrong with my Chromebook or trying to type out what was wrong on the Chromebook. An audio response was most appropriate. It's how you could really get really explain yourself well if you aren't familiar with different ways that Chromebooks break. And then lastly, of course, in Gmail. And I use this, I actually helped with a community of coaches come up with this instructional playbook. And one of the women that was helping on this collaborative process had a visual impairment, a temporary visual impairment, but she and I communicated back and forth using Mote in our Gmail, like authentically, because of her need for that accessibility tool. So as a coach, you always want to model this. And collaborative team planning. So I don't know about your schools, but my schools, some of them, it's really hard to get teachers to have the same planning. And you guys might call it a PLC, but it's really hard to get all the teachers on at the same time, meeting at the same time. We've got teachers that teach 12th grade and 10th grade or 6th grade and 8th grade, and it just doesn't work. So I also try to get our collaborative teams to use Mote so that when they're planning out their lesson plans or their backwards design, they're leaving comments back and forth to each other so that they can really say their thinking process when they add something to their lesson plan. So that has been great. And I actually used it, as you'll see the presenters following me, we actually use this tool to communicate back and forth with what we were going to share today. So this is a great tool when you have to plan with people that don't have common planning. And classroom observations. So I call them a snapshot more than an observation because in my role, I'm not evaluative, but I do go into classrooms quite a bit to see what teachers are doing. And then I provide this feedback to them. It goes from me to them and nowhere else. And so during these observations, I have this template, and then I would add noticings or wonderings to specific parts of their instruction, or in a notes and feedback section, a hypermote. So the great thing about using Mote in docs when communicating with teachers is that you have the ability to comment and have the comment show up right there. Or I love hypermotes that provide teachers with a hyperlink. And data chats. So you can see here, this is also from yesterday's Mote session. I picked it up. I love the student conferencing and data reflections. Both of these here actually come from Stephanie Howe, and I've linked her session here that I'll share with you all. But Mote is great for app smashing. I know Alex has shared how he app smashes with Wakelet. And on the Mote Learning Zone, you'll see how Mote smashes great with Autocrat. And that is what you see here down at the bottom, a reflection sheet. So as a coach, you always want to be looking at data and then helping teachers with how they can share data with their student and with their families. And Mote integrates great. These are both Google Slides. And so I really encourage, if you are a coach, to learn how you can app smash with Mote, because I think that's really powerful. And I think my next step is DocuPender. If you're not familiar with DocuPender, it's another great app smashing tool that I think would be fantastic. It's an extension that would be great for Mote, because then you can get running documents for every teacher that you work with or every student that you work with. And I just think it's a fantastic tool. So I would encourage anyone, or if anyone here that's watching now has a way that you app smash with Mote, I would love to know about it, because that's fantastic and one of my favorite things to do. And a pineapple party. So I don't know, this was really popular back in the day. I feel like it's coming back around, but I don't know if any of your schools ever had a pineapple chart. So one of my schools had a pineapple chart, and it was like right above the copier. And if you were doing something cool in your classroom, you would write it down and what day and times and periods, and teachers could come observe your class during that time. And it was great for new teachers to observe a more experienced teacher and what they were doing in their room. And it was really inviting, and it created this sense of community. And so really, I think that's great to have above your copier. But I also love this idea. Another teacher from Texas told me about this, about how they would have a QR code outside their classroom door, letting their visitors know what to expect when they came in, perhaps their teaching philosophy, perhaps a mission statement, the goals they had when they came in. So we know we have people coming in and out of our classes a lot, whether it's another teacher who's learning from you or observing, or administration. And so I really love that Mote has the ability to have a QR code, and then a visitor can scan this QR code and kind of get a sense of what they're walking into in the room. And it's also, for me, I would like this as a teacher. I'd put it out and I would say, I want you to look at this. This is what I'm trying to improve on in my instruction, or this is my goal. I would love feedback. So then the person coming into your room has a focus for why they're coming into your room and what you would like out of it as return. So I love this idea. I've rebranded it from a pineapple chart to this pineapple party. And a quick note from anywhere and everywhere. So I don't think when talking to teachers, they realize this feature or know about it and how awesome it is. So as a coach, I am getting in my car, going to one school, traveling to another school, in and out of classes. And I don't always have time to like open up my laptop and type a note or type an email real quick. And so I really depend on this feature. So I open Mote on my phone. I make a quick note. It's recorded. It's now part of my Mote account, and I can either send it directly to my phone. So if I go in and I observe a teacher and I just want to send them a quick note, I record, thanks so much for letting me come into your room and observe. It was great. I can't wait to work more with you this year. And then I can either send it right there so they get that instant feedback, just like we talk about with students, or I can just leave it in my account and send it at a later time. It's also great for personal accountability. A lot of times I'm walking out of the room and something comes to mind just for myself, and I'll record a note to myself and then go back and listen to it at another time. So it's a great tool for me when communicating with staff, but it's also just helpful to me because I don't know about you, but in my car, I'll just like play through my notes while I'm traveling home or between schools, and it keeps this fresh in my mind. So every template that I have shown you here, I have gone ahead and linked in Mote Coach 23 in this bit.ly. So if you liked any of the templates that you saw from the snapshot to the procedures, they're all linked in this presentation. Take at it, change them up, and I would love to know how you use Mote in these tools. And if you were not part of MoteCon yesterday and you are joining us for the first time today, I really want to highlight the Learning Zone. So the Learning Zone is being added to constantly. Every month, there's multiple new ways to use Mote, and it's anything from ways to engage students with Mote in kindergarten, all the way up through high school, feedback. I mean, it is incredible the way that the ambassadors are adding to this in the most clever ways that I can't imagine. And every time I look at this page, I'm amazed and enthralled. So this was just a quick session. I know I'm ending a couple of minutes early, but if you have questions, I'd love to hear from you for it. And thanks for tuning in. And that's how I've been using Mote. Oh, I can't hear you, Will.
Sorry about that. I was muted. That was great. I love that. Like, I love it when people remind me of things that I haven't used myself for a while. Like, I should be using our mobile app and I forget. So yeah, we have an iOS mobile app. We also have the Mote.com website, which you can get to via mote.news. So you can actually record voice notes on your web browser on your phone, and that will work on Android devices as well as iOS devices. So no, I think that's great. Actually, I was wondering, in your kind of work as a tech coach, are there any stories you could share about like where you feel like you've had a real breakthrough working with a teacher or with a student, helping to sort of, that you've like had a light bulb moment and really seen that kind of impact?
Yeah, I mean, I see it mostly when a teacher thinks something is very difficult and then they see how technology can integrate in like a really natural way that actually makes their life easier. And that's why I really try and promote using the tools you want teachers to use.
Yeah.
And that's why I try and use Mote as much as possible in Google Forms, Google Slides, Gmail, so that teachers that might not go out and look for these accessibility tools on their own, see it, and it makes them think, oh, that's clever and looks real easy. All I have to do is click on it. And then they begin to ask questions and start to use it. And that's the big thing, is when they take something that they were kind of hesitant about and they see it and use it and it becomes easy. And then you almost like step back and they just share it with all the other teachers in the school. And you get a little upset because you're like, I showed you that.
Oh, that's awesome.
and then they share it with each other, which is the best, especially since you are moving around all day. You can't connect. You really do rely on other people to like share with each other, is what
Absolutely.
I find, so you got to really get those teachers that, talk to other people and are willing to try new things.
I think that's great, and as you mentioned, I think sometimes the folks who gravitate to using Mote and loving it are perhaps some of the teachers that you would least expect to really love technology. We have a really, folks who really have struggled with using lots of other tools, but they really find Mote and they find that it solves a problem for them, and it's become really core to their teaching practice, which is pretty gratifying for us as a team, and I imagine as a coach as well. When not every teacher is open to using technology, but if you can find the tools that really work for them, then that's really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think even just the ability to embed Mote, to link Mote, to have a QR code, like that pineapple idea came because a teacher that came to my school from Texas, they had to have their mission statement like outside the door. It was like a requirement of his school.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I was like, well, that's great. We can get a QR code from just about anywhere, but if we're already using Mote and I want teachers to use Mote, then why don't you just use the QR code from there? It'll have the little Mote symbol. So, it's just another way to get teachers to use it and in this natural way. And now I love the QR code outside of a classroom, because how often do you pass a QR code and you're like, I wonder what this is? And so when it's outside a teacher's door, I wouldn't be able to stop, like go past it without scanning it to see what it was. So I think it's a great way, especially when teachers, we now almost, at least at my schools, because of safety, we all have to have closed doors all the time. And it used to be 20 years ago, doors were open and you could hear what other teachers were doing. It felt so welcoming almost. And now, unfortunately, we have closed doors, locked doors, and you really don't know what's going on in the rooms around you. You don't have that feel like you used to. So I do like this idea of a QR code outside of a classroom where you can hear what's going on in that room that day. And it gives you this sense of like, oh, maybe I want to go in here, because the doors are closed. And I spent the first 15 years as a co-teacher, and I attribute staying in education and any success I've had in education is because of my experience co-teaching and learning from others. And I feel like the connection that Mote allows with teachers and with students is really the finest part of this resource. I think that's it connects people in a way that other technology does not and other tools don't.
It's pretty powerful. Yeah, I think that's the flexibility of audio. It does allow you to sort of break down those barriers of location. I love some of the applications that we've seen with Mote being integrated into all sorts of kind of creative applications, and what people have done with QR codes. We've seen QR codes on the back of toilet doors to promote promote books or promote courses. We've seen them on, as you say, on classrooms. We've seen them used in libraries. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Speaking of QR codes, so we're going to have QR codes available for attendees. So if you want to get a certificate showing that you attended this session, there'll be a QR code. So get your cameras ready. There'll be a Google form to fill in. And if you attend more than one session, please just fill in the Google form. For every other session that you attend, there'll be a different form for each of the 4 sessions of MoteCon. But you'll get a chance to fill that in. And we'll also be sharing any other information and links from these sessions as well. So please do complete that so we know who's attended. Any parting words you want to give, Erin, before we wrap this up?
No, I'm super excited to see the other educators that are coming on after me, because I've gone back into the classroom half-time as a special education teacher, which is my background. And so next up, we have a special education teacher who's been using Mote in her classroom for years. So I need to learn from her. So I'm really excited for the sessions coming up today.
That's awesome. And just to let everyone know, so Cheryl Graf is joining us next. So Cheryl is super well known. She's she's a superstar special ed teacher. She's always got great ideas to share. So it's going to be a great session. Don't go anywhere. So we'll be back in a few minutes. So grab yourself something to drink or stretch your legs, and we'll see you back here in about 5 minutes' time. Bye for now. Thanks again, Erin. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Alrighty, I am so excited to introduce our first real presenter today, Cheryl Graff. I am so excited to be able to introduce her. She is a special education teacher who is, I'm sure a lot of you know her. I have known her through social media for a while. I have been following her and then just met her in person at ISTE. So it's great. She is known for Wakelet and Book Creator and Pear Deck, but definitely Mote and how she uses it in her special education classroom. So I'm so excited to introduce you all to Cheryl, and thank you for joining us today and sharing.
Okay, hi everyone. I think everyone can see my screen with the presentation on there. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for the amazing introduction. So I am going to talk to you about using Mote in a special education classroom. This is going to be a lightning speed presentation because I only have 30 minutes to really share this information with you. I'm really excited. So let's just get going. So I've already talked about, well, I just had a great introduction about what my session is going to be about, that I'm a special education teacher. I work primarily with high school students. I am in Chicago public schools, and you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it, Miss Graffroom. So the agenda for today, there's 3 key topics that I really want to cover. And again, I have to do this in a really fast-paced agenda. So there's so many more things that we can explore with these topics. But I think I'm going to do my best to give you an overview of how I really use Mote in my classroom. So I first want to talk about how I use Mote with my students. I'm going to talk about how I use Mote to collaborate and communicate with colleagues. And then I really want to talk about the importance of using Mote to communicate with families, because no matter, what type of environment you're in, especially in a school environment, we're always going to be interacting with not only the students and our colleagues, but also the families, which are really important. And I always call them the experts too. So using Mote with our students. Whoops, I just went backwards. So I want to talk about Mote with Google Tools. I'm going to talk about using Mote on an LMS system. And then I'm going to talk about Mote as a modification and accommodation. So Mote with Google Tools. Since I'm presenting, and this is actually my first time using Canva as a presentation, which is really awesome, I decided to take screenshots so there weren't any audio technical issues. So 3 ways that I use Mote in my classroom. So one of the things that I always forget to mention every time that I'm presenting is that I actually co-teach with 4 different general education teachers. And this year, I'm actually teaching 4 different contents. So I teach in a kind of a self-contained setting where I'm helping students with IEPs, with executive functioning. I'm teaching Algebra 2. I'm teaching junior level English and senior level English this year. So lots of preps. And I love using Google Mote with Google Tools because my school, we are a Google tool. So one of the ways, or Google School. So one of the ways that I use Mote is actually to provide audio feedback as a Google comment. So if a student, for instance, is working on a Google Doc for their essay, I've tried to take some pictures here. If you go and provide them feedback on that Google Doc with that little plus sign or add a comment, instead of writing just a really long paragraph of text, I actually record my voice and say, hey, Susie, go back to paragraph 2, and I think you have some grammar mistakes. Or how could you explain such and such in a little bit more depth? And what I love about Mote is that the student can listen to this over and over as many times as they want. And sometimes, I'm sure we've all experienced this. I've experienced this myself with emails or just text comments. It's really hard to imagine what the person who created that feedback is thinking. So having this having Mote as a great tool really helps our students process, especially our students who are, we call them diverse learner students with IEPs and 504s, to really just take in and process that feedback. Another way that I use Mote with Google Tools is providing audio task directions on a Google form. I'm sure a lot of us use Google Forms to check in with our students as like how they're feeling. I use this a lot in my self-contained setting, which is called a resource classroom, to check in with students about what assignments they need to do for the day. So I always provide text directions. You can, when you're completing a Google form, and I tried to give a little screenshot up in the right-hand corner. It's not super clear. And actually, it doesn't look like that my slides are moving for some reason. I'm looking on the screen and it looks like my slides aren't moving, sadly. I'm not sure what's going on with my slides right here. Oh, they are moving, I guess, but I don't, oh, there we go. For some reason on my screen, it looked like it wasn't moving. So I like to provide audio task directions on a Google form. So I'm giving students those directions and they're able to really process and understand what I'm asking them to do in the classroom at that moment. And then the third step is I like to provide audio or voice to text feedback on Google Slides. So at the high school level, we do a lot of presenting. I really want students, especially in their IEP meetings, to have a voice. So when they are presenting, I actually have them provide audio feedback so that we can really hear their voice through the slides. And it's great in a team meeting because maybe the student is really shy to share what they're learning in class or what they need to work on. So we can press play on Google Slides and hear their voice, which is awesome. All right, so now I want to talk about Mote with Google Classroom, because I think that's really, really important. So one of the ways that I use Mote in Google Classroom is I provide audio announcements. I call them the don't forget abouts. A lot of my students are continuing to work on executive functioning. It's not very easy for them. So rather than just typing up a very long message in the stream, I always provide audio along with that message so students can process about what they need for the week, what they need for class. We're starting school next week, and I just used Mote the other day. I couldn't take a screenshot of it, but I used Mote to remind students, hey, school starts Monday, and don't forget to come to first period, which is our advisory, and check the topic. I have a topic in my advisory Google Classroom about the new bell schedule. So we have a new bell schedule, and I've already seen students start to engage with that Mote in Google Classroom, which is awesome. I also, like I mentioned in the slide before, I provide audio feedback on assignments, especially in that private comment section, right? I'm sure maybe a lot of us have experienced feedback on different things, or maybe we have taken, I just finished an endorsement in English as a second language. My teacher would often provide me just text feedback, and I had no idea why I got that grade on that specific assignment. With using Mote in that private comment section, I can easily process and understand, okay, what was my teacher trying to tell me and why I got that grade? Same with my students. They really appreciate that I go in detail in the private comment section on Google Classroom, like, hey, this is why I gave you this score or this rating, and here's what you can do to make corrections. My favorite part of using Mote with Google Classroom is actually creating audio questions of the day. I call them the QODs in my classroom, and students can go on the screen, and rather than typing their response in the comments, they can answer my question with audio communication, which is awesome. So lots of things that you can do with Mote. All right, so Mote for modifications, which are really important. I've talked a lot about how I use Mote with Google Tools. I want to talk about also how we use Mote for modifications, okay? So the first thing that I do when I have an assessment, I love to provide audio recordings using Mote to read aloud a story or a test to a student. I'm not only a special education teacher, but a fun fact about me, and I've mentioned this, I think, to a lot of the Mote team, or just if you get the chance to meet me in person, I do have a background as a singer. And I'm sure, even if you're not a singer, as a teacher, as a special education teacher, my voice really gets tired throughout the day. And when I have to read a lot of tests, my voice is just going to get really, really tired. So I often use Mote to record myself reading a story or reading multiple choice questions. So that way I can conserve my voice throughout the day, and I can use my voice when I need to. Also, I love having students, again, use audio to share mastery of the content. So if we're giving an assessment in English class, right? And maybe the student has really trouble expressing their thoughts through handwriting or through typing, let's allow our students to record their response using audio. And you can submit that through Mote or through a Mote sticky, which is really fun. And the last thing actually is when we are using our technology, because in my school, we are, for the first time ever, we are a one-to-one Chromebook school through the Verizon Learning Initiative. It's called the VILS, very long name. All students and staff in the school that I work at actually get access to a Chromebook for the entire year. So teachers love to use websites. And I love having students use the sticky mode as an annotation to a website or story they're reading. Maybe the student has to write a paper and they have to use evidence from different sources. Let's have our students utilize Mote and make a recording or annotation so they remember later on when they're going to write that paper, oh, this is what I was thinking when I was exploring this website, or this is how I want to use that piece of evidence from such website to integrate that into my essay. So lots of ways that we can utilize Mote for modifications and accommodations. Now, all right, I talked about the student aspect. I also want to talk about how I use Mote with colleagues, which is very, very important. So the key things that I'm going to touch on are collaboration and communication with Mote. So Mote for collaboration. One of the ways that I use Mote for collaboration is, like I said, I work with 4 different teachers this year, which is a lot. It's a lot as a special education teacher. And we have a lot of different documents. A lot of teachers use Google Calendar, or they use Google Docs and create a calendar, or Google Sheets. Mote is amazing because when I'm looking at different lesson plans, I don't really have a lot of time to type out a lot of comments, a lot of feedback. So I love, again, using Mote as an audio way in Google Tools to provide a comment or feedback on a lesson, or telling my co-teacher, hey, I would love to take the lead on these 2 slides in the lesson, which is awesome. Another way that I love using Mote is during those staff meetings. We all have to go to staff meetings or professional learning. Maybe a colleague of mine can't attend a staff meeting, or they can't attend a professional learning. I love to record audio notes during these times and share them with colleagues later on so they can get kind of the gist of what happened in that learning session. What were the highlights of that staff meeting or learning session? All right, so Mote for communication with colleagues is very important as well. When I write emails, again, I really don't have a lot of time jumping from 4 different classes as a special education teacher in 4 different rooms throughout the day. So I love to include an email with an audio recording using Mote, so that way somebody can process my thoughts about, oh, this is what Miss Graff needs, or this is what she was saying. I also, again, I'm in charge of a lot of IEPs with very limited time throughout the day. So I actually create what's called snapshots, which are kind of an overview of the students' learning needs and what they need in each classroom. And I provide audio in different sections of that snapshot. So teachers are like, huh, what does that mean? And they can click on my audio recording with Mote to really understand what support students need in their classroom. All right, and finally, I know I'm going through this really, really fast. I really want to talk about how we can use Mote for family engagement, because remember, as I mentioned before, our families are the experts of their children, and it's really important that we get them involved at the table, whether we're at an IEP meeting or when we're just educating their child in general. So the first way that I use Mote with families is about every couple of months, I like to create what's called a positive postcard. I usually create this on Google Slides. There's many templates out there. You can, if you don't have time to be fancy, you can just, write a little blurb. But in addition to that, I like to use Mote to read that blurb and send that home to the family. Like maybe Susie Q got all of her assignments done on time that week. So I want to send a note home saying, I'm really proud of you, Susie Q, that you turned in all of your assignments on time and you've just been participating more. This really makes a message that's in text come to life with audio. Another way that I also love to use Mote with family engagement is a tool, Wakelet. If you're not familiar with Wakelet, you should be. I call it the Pinterest 2.0 because you can create a Wakelet and it saves audio files such as Mote, PDFs, pretty much you name it. It's like a Pinterest on steroids to me. So in my Wakelet every week, I have something called the Miss Graff's Weekly Word, which is where I inform families of just updates in my classroom, school-wide announcements that I think they should know about. And when I do this in my Wakelet, I always add, again, to the text that I've saved, an audio note just explaining the updates. And families have really given me great feedback about this because it really brings the message to life, especially for our ELL families who may not speak English. It's been really beneficial to have them listen to me talk about the different school-wide events and get excited about what's going on in school. So we're getting close to the end. I'm actually doing very well on time. I think it's 10:47. But one quote that I always end my sessions with is this one by Deborah Ruh, which she is a activist for individuals with disabilities. And she says that accessibility allows us to tap into everyone's potential. When we utilize tools like Mote, we are really bringing content to life. We are really engaging more of our families, more of our colleagues, and getting them excited to support all of our learners, which is so important. And I believe that as a special education teacher, that we cannot just continue to do traditional methods of teaching. We need to utilize tools like Mote to really help our students thrive in no matter what classroom setting they are in, no matter what school setting we are in, and just really make things accessible. When we make things accessible, more students are engaged, our families are engaged, and our colleagues are excited, and we increase collaboration among so many school stakeholders. So I know that was very, very short and condensed and jam-packed, but I hope that everybody has walked away with a new tip on how they can use Mote. Please continue to stay connected. Again, my name is Cheryl Graff. I'm a 9th through 12th grade special education teacher in Chicago Public Schools at Chicago, Illinois. I'm a Mote ambassador. You can find me on pretty much all the socials at Miss Graff's Room. Thank you so much to the Mote team. I am so grateful to be here and present with you all, and have a wonderful rest of your MoteCon and a wonderful rest of your school, or I should say, a wonderful beginning of your school year. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Cheryl, for that. And I've been patiently waiting in the background here to ask you, what's your go-to karaoke song as a singer?
That is a great question. The one that I actually did at the ISTE conference this summer was Before He Cheats, and that brought down the house. It was at one of the ISTE after hour events. I think it was like the TEQ event.
All right.
It was
I have I gained a lot from your moat session, but that was like I had to ask as you for the singer because I am not one. Now I'm going back into the classroom for the first time in 5 years, and so the way that you engage families is real new and interesting to me because 5 years ago we engaged with families in a totally different way. So I really took a lot from the comment that you said about family engagement, and someone in the comments on YouTube said something about like the inclusivity of that. And I think that's huge, especially since, the pandemic and coming out of COVID and, what everyone says that family engagement piece is big. So have you really seen the use of Mote really helping you to connect to these families more?
Yeah, I really have, especially the past year or so. I don't know about other major cities in the US, but in Chicago, we are receiving a lot of migrants, a lot of immigrants as well. And having a tool like Mote to engage with them, even just having, they may not understand all the words that I'm saying, but they understand the inflection in my voice, and they're really able to process, okay, this is what she means, or this is very important to pay attention and listen. Also, just a lot of families have stressed to me they love me using Mote because they don't have a lot of time in their day, like me as a special education teacher, and they don't have time to read very long emails. And when I use Mote, I kind of summarize, give a recap of like, this is what this email is about. Here are kind of the key bullet points. So I really have seen more family engagement in their willingness to communicate with me, or even just ask questions after they listen to the Mote messages that I send out.
Yeah, that's great. And Amanda Hunt's joining us after this, and then Jennifer Scott. And I think both of them are going to touch on their emerging bilingual students. And so I think those of us that are staying on are really going to take what you have, and what you said about family engagement, and we can take your piece and apply it to what they're going to present too. And kudos to you for 4 teachers, 4 class preps. That's a lot. I only work with 3 different teachers, so I cannot imagine 4. And thank you for highlighting the sticky Mote. I don't feel like a lot of people use that as much, maybe. And maybe I see it as super powerful, but I'm a secondary educator also. And like you said, there are all these ways now to like modify a website, but to take students directly to a website and be able to add annotations to the same site is great.
Yeah. By the way, I found out about that schedule yesterday. So I've also been, my brain is like, about ready to explode because I was setting up my classroom all day yesterday. So I'm hoping that this session went smoothly too, because I'm on like hyper speed. So usually I'm with 3 teachers, but this year they're like, nope, we need you with 4. I'm like, okay. Yeah, it's just I'm just grateful for Mote. I'm just grateful for the different ways that Mote just ensures that we can be accessible, whether it's through content, whether it's through communication and collaboration. Just Mote is fantastic. And I just really started using the sticky Motes, I would say, for like the past 2 years. I saw the power of that. Usually I've just been using just Mote in general, but when we started, our school has a big emphasis on annotation skills. And I've really seen the power of how we can use those sticky notes to help students improve their understanding of what they read, and also help them integrate evidence really well in their writing.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Cheryl, for enlightening us this Saturday morning. If you are joining us, please go grab a coffee, glass of water. We have Amanda Hunt coming up next. So thank you, Cheryl, for joining us, and stay tuned for the next session of MoteCon.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your MoteCon. So happy to be here. Bye.
Oh, all right. Next up, we have Amanda Hunt, who is known as the Next Gen Librarian on social media. And she is the secondary lead librarian in her school district, as well as a middle school librarian in Central Texas. So, hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you for
So
joining.
excited to be here.
How's your Saturday so far?
It's good. First day of school's on Monday, so
Oh, you got a full week for your first week back, huh?
Yeah, they were not thinking of us when they decided to do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining. I'm going to step back and let you take full stage.
Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. I'm not quite sure how I'm supposed to follow Cheryl's presentation because that was amazing. And I learned stuff in that one. So I'm so excited to take that back to my special education teachers on my campus. So I hope that you guys can get some new tips and tricks from this presentation. So for those of you that want to take the presentation and go back to it later so that you're not like having to take notes or anything, the bit.ly is on this screen. It will also be on my last slide. So yes, we are going to be talking about using Mote with our emerging bilingual students. That is the name that we have in our district. Not quite sure what y'all call it in yours. Also known as ESL, ELL, but it's EBs now. My name is Amanda Hunt. I'm also known as the Next Gen Librarian. You can follow me on all the socials. And Mote is definitely one of my favorite tools in my educator toolbox to use. And let's just jump right into it. So, hey everyone, it's Amanda. I'm going to skip that one because I did embed a Mote, and it is an example of how I do my toilet talks with my teachers. And I just wanted to kind of put that in there as a way that you guys can see the benefits of how you can use Mote. I'm sure many of you watching this know how to use Mote. And so I'll kind of bounce through the directions kind of quickly. But I did want you guys to know that that is something you can embed in. I'm using Canva for this presentation, but I've done it with Google Slides and several other presentation tools. So you can insert Mote's auditory explanations when you're doing stuff for students in the classroom. And so you guys know that you can get Mote from the Chrome Web Store and you can install it. These are just ways that you guys can use voice comments. It's just the very basic of how you can use Mote in your classroom, in the library, and beyond with parents and students and staff. And then this just kind of goes over how you can use it with Google Classroom. Cheryl did a great job describing that one. We actually use Canvas in my district as our LMS, but we have used Google Classroom in the past, and it works well with Canvas as well, because a lot of the things I do with Google, I just put into Canvas. And it's really great and works great there too. So for when we're talking about our emerging bilingual students, I want to give you just a little bit of background on where I'm coming from. I am in South Central Texas, and it's about 4 hours from the U.S.-Mexico border. And so whenever I am talking about EBs on my campus, we are 100% Spanish is our second language, or is our first language, with English as their second language. And so for us, it is literally just working with one language, but I know that is not the case in many, many other schools across the nation, because we have students coming from all over the world to our schools. And I think it's great because we get to learn from them and them from us, right? So when we're talking about the benefits of using Mote with our EB students, it allows for personalized feedback, right? It allows you to convey tone and inflection in a way that sometimes comments can't. I am a real big, I use a lot of inflection in my voice. And so when I'm excited, kids know it that way. And so when I'm typing, I'm always like lots of exclamation points, lots of emojis, because I want them to know what I'm trying to get across in a very positive way. And sometimes you got to go extra on the comments. Whereas with my voice, they can really hear it and they can really sense, what I'm trying to say, and it can get across in a different way. when we're talking about language support with our EBs. And it's really interesting because so much of what we do with our emerging bilingual students, we should do with all of our students, because it's really just about giving them lots of different ways to learn the content that you're going over with them. And it can be visually, it can be auditory. And so we need to be learning for how we present the information for all of our students. So whenever I say this works great with EB students, it also can work great with any of your students on campus, right? There's nothing wrong with having things written out. It's nothing wrong with using your voice to talk and explain things. Like all kids can benefit from different types of ways of learning. But for sure with our EB students, hearing that feedback can help them with comprehension, because in our state, every year in the spring, our EB students, poor babies, they have to take what is called the TELPAS test, where they have to listen, read, write, and speak 4 different exams. And it is a lot. And it is on top of our state tests that they have to take. So for them, they get this like few weeks window where they have to really, really do a lot. We ask so much of them and during that time. And so anytime they can hear things and respond to you or do it written is going to be good practice, because they are going to have to do those tests in the state of Texas. And I think using voice comments for them can really reduce anxiety, right? Because a lot of times they're afraid to get up in front of and talk in front of the group. They're afraid to even talk to me in the library sometimes. And so whenever they have that voice comment that they can speak back to me, it's going to be a good thing, because they're going to have the ability to do that on their own time, in their own home where they feel comfortable. And so they can really take their time with it and not feel like they have to rush or that they're going to get in trouble for saying something wrong. A lot of them have that fear, right? And then it encourages students to provide voice comments to their peers. We definitely use it in that way to foster a positive and inclusive learning environment. We want students talking to each other in a positive way to give feedback. It's definitely something that our district, we are a 1-to-1 iPad district, K to 12. And so these kids have had those iPads in their hands. I think this is our 14th year. Like, we've really had it for a really long time. So the kids that are coming to me have been using iPads since they were 4 and 5 years old in the classroom. So they are very comfortable with it. They're very familiar with the tech side. But using those voice comments to talk to each other, especially since the pandemic, is hard for all of our kids, not just our emerging bilingual students, right? Because they are used to being in their room, doing work on their own in a very isolated environment. So when we brought them back into the classroom, we had to kind of teach them how to talk to each other, how to be positive, a lot of those social skills that they missed out on during that time. And like I said, with TELPAS, it's really important for those kids to practice those skills before they have to take that exam. So voice feedback is really powerful for our learned language, or those that are learning the language, because Mote does an amazing job of converting translating into different languages. It is actually super helpful. Last year, our ESL teacher on our campus did not speak Spanish, and all of her kids did, right? So it was a really tough language barrier for her. And so using Mote allowed her to be able to speak to them without knowing a lot of the language that she was trying to convey, right? And so it's really important for that piece. This year, our ESL teacher does speak Spanish. It's actually her first language. So I love that they have that in common and they're able to have those conversations together. These are some of the languages. It's more than 20, which is amazing to me. I'm not quite sure how Mote does this, but it's pretty awesome to see all the different ways that Mote can translate your voice memos. And and I've had a lot of success with it. We use English and Spanish interchangeably on our campus. We teach Spanish 1, 2, and 3 on our campus as well. So my foreign language teachers absolutely love using Mote. So even my EB students, they are not the only ones using it. And so they don't feel like singled out in that way of using that particular extension, because a lot of our kids that are taking Spanish as a foreign language are using it as well in the classrooms. So how can we use Mote with our EB accommodations in various subjects? So Mote has so many different features that are so great for our auditory users. And obviously when they translate it, you can read it. So it works across levels. And like I said, in our district, you have to be ESL certified to be hired. So every single teacher on our campus and in our district has that ESL certification on their certificate. So they have already gone through the training, they've taken the test to see what works with those kids. Because what works with our EB kids, like I said, works so well with so many of our other students. Repeating words, using different vocabulary, giving them a vocabulary list, offering the auditory piece to it. It's all so successful with all of our students. And so it's not something that we need to we need to say, okay, EBs, this is just for you. No, that's not something that ever happens in our classroom. We are definitely making this a universal thing across the board, but they are getting those accommodations, which is amazing, because what some accommodations for our EB work with our special education population, that work with our gifted and talented population. So we are serving so many different types of students, but Mote allows it to be just something that can be universally used and be a positive for all of our kids. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of the different subjects that you could use Mote and have some examples. I do have a link on where I got some of these because I am not a science and math person. As much as I love doing like STEM, STEAM, stream activities with kids, science and math are just not personally my jam. So I did have to kind of go and look out into the world and see what other teachers are doing. So I just love that some of these things can be translated with Mote, and you can use any type of G Suite, a tool to embed Mote into, whether it's the speaking piece or the students are speaking to you for an answer. It has lots of different options. So with science, it could be something like describing a chemical reaction, and the kids have to say what they think might happen. Like it could be a great, you're making predictions, or they're actually having to actually tell you exactly what will happen when that chemical reaction occurs, right? So for math, it could be something where they are talking out the equation, they are listing it step by step, they are calculating, the perimeter of the room that they're in, or what have you, and they are able to say it with their voice, right? And for a lot of kids, writing is difficult. Like I said, we are an iPad district since they were little, so their writing skills can be a little low, right? And in the state of Texas, we took out cursive for a long time, and now it's back in as our some of our TEKs. So the handwriting skills are subpar with some of our kids. And now that we have our state test being done on technology, the kids are typing out their written responses. And so the writing skills have definitely gone down. The handwriting, the actually using a pencil and a pen. Now, a lot of kids have styluses, and so like that helps them a little bit. But being able to talk and speak out your answers shows learning and growth in the same way writing it does. So I think that's also very interesting and something to take note of with our students in this particular climate that we're living in right now, with technology the way that it is and everything like that. We need to take the student where they are and see how they can be most successful. So ELA is that's my heart. That's obviously who the teachers that I work the most with in the library. So definitely I've kind of talked with them about how they can use Mote in their classrooms to, like I said, talk out theories of books. They can do predictions and foreshadowing, and they can definitely discuss polarizing topics such as with Romeo and Juliet, what they think would happen. And so Mote allows them to kind of have those discussions as they're reading. Like if they assigned a chapter overnight, well, they're reading that at home, or they're reading it in a different class than they're in. So being able to have them talk out what they think is happening in the book, that kind of thing is definitely better for our emerging bilingual students than having them write it in some cases. Now, they do have to practice that writing piece, but if you're just hoping for like a quick check for understanding, it can be a great tool to use in ELA as well. In social studies, they can speak the different countries and label them differently. And they can definitely work with vocabulary practice. There is so much vocabulary in our social studies from 6th, 7th, and 8th at the middle school level. Like sometimes it's insane to me how much the kids have to learn for our state test, which is actually in 8th grade that they have to take social studies. So my 8th grade teachers really utilize this when they are doing their practice for their exam. We have health and speech on our campus. So obviously with speech, you'd be able to just talk into Mote and give a speech that way. A lot of our emerging bilingual students don't like to take speech, and it stinks because they do get a high school credit if they take health and speech when they're in 8th grade. That's the only grade we offer it, and then that way that's one less credit they have to do in high school. But a lot of my students are like, I don't want to talk in front of a whole group like that. So offering them to be able to record their speeches through Mote and upload to different documents it's been really a game changer for my communications teacher, and she has tried to recruit a lot of our EB students to her class. Now that they know that there's an option, we are going to work with them to make them successful. And then with health, right, they can describe different parts of the body. They can talk about different ways to be healthy. My health teacher is a coach, right? And so he's always looking for different ways to make his life easier with all the different preps that he has. And so by offering the voice aspect of answering questions in his class has been so great for him because it helps him grading as well. And then like with music, we have band, we have choir, and we have theater also at the middle school level. And so for them to be able to record a clip of themselves singing, it saves my teacher time because we only have 45-minute classes. And if they need to hear every single kid in that room sing or play an instrument during that time, that's just not going to happen. So Mote has been a time saver for a lot of my elective teachers because they're able to give that to them as something they can do at home in the comfort of their own home, where they can really truly be themselves and share that without the fear of doing it in front of the teacher, in front of the class. Now, obviously, we're not trying to create students that only want to do that. But for our EB kids especially, they already have a fear of speaking in front of people. And it's a lot of it, it can come from a time that they had with their peers where it was an embarrassing moment, or maybe they had a teacher that made them feel like what they were saying isn't correct, or making them feel bad about having them talk in front of someone else. And I hate that for them, but it is something that they've lived with, a stigma coming to a country where they don't speak the language. We should not be making it harder for them, right? We need to be making it easier for them to learn and want to come to school and want to be in our classrooms. In the library, when I do book talks with students, I usually record like my face and I'm talking about a book because I use my hands a lot, and I'm always very trying to be as expressive with my voice as I can to get the kids interested in the book that I'm talking about. But first, when I do it, I also make sure I'm recording my voice while that is going on. Or if you just recorded yourself visually, there are websites where you can change an MP4 into an MP3 for just the sound. And then you take that sound and you put it into Mote, right? And I make sure that my kids can get it translated into Spanish with what I'm saying. Now, also, I make sure whatever book I'm book talking, I also have a copy in Spanish, right? Because I do have a whole Spanish section of books that are popular that kids want to read. And if you are at a school that has a different language than Spanish, make sure that if you can, that you are supplying them with books that they can read in their native language, right? And like I said, we are 100% Spanish, but if you have an Arabic speaker or someone that is speaking French or any other language, do you have any books? And I don't mean books from like 40 years ago. I mean like new titles. And it's hard because publishers aren't always having it in different languages and things like that. So you want to make sure that you are offering something in their language and that it's actually something, oh, if they're so excited about it, oh, but it's only in English. Well, that's going to dissuade them from wanting to come to the library and get books from me, right? So I always make sure my displays are in different languages. Anything I send home, I'm able to translate with Mote, and I put those all in Canvas for parents and students to access because we really want to work on that accessibility piece with all of our kids. There's lots of different ways that you can use Mote, and I've linked these in here. Obviously, verbal rubrics. I love that. We are a district that does a lot of project-based learning, and that does include a lot of rubrics. And so having a verbal one is really great for our EB students because then they understand exactly what's being expected of them when they translate that into Spanish. Live reactions to experiments. I sent this to my science teachers, and I'm excited to have them try it this year because I think that would be really fun. And then response posts and virtual class discussions. If you are a teacher that does flipped classroom, meaning that you record the lesson, the kids do that for homework, and then when they come to class, that's when they actually work on the assignment because they've already learned the content from you in a different way, right? It's really great because it can translate your lesson. Kids can get it on different levels. They can rewatch it in class sometimes if they're tired, if they just had a fight with their best friend. If they're not tuned in, they miss the whole thing. They're not going to understand the work that night, and there's no one at home to help them generally once you hit middle school. And so doing flipped classroom is awesome, especially for our EBs, because then in class, that's when you can sit with them and you can work with them and really get into the meat of the assignment and what they did and didn't understand. And then all these links are just different ways that I have used Mote in the past and that I want to give credit to the people that I got the idea from. And so I've linked those in there. If you want to take a second to go through them later, feel free to do so because a lot of these I have used with my staff, I've used with parents, and I've used with students and had a lot of success with. And so here's obviously just even more examples. Like you can see right here, this is one that we've used for Spanish. And you can use it with foreign language as well, not just with your EB students, but you can definitely record that, the assignment, and the kids can translate it and record it back to you and record their answers. And podcasting is actually really taken off. And I definitely want my EB students to have that experience. I'd love for them to be able to record a podcasting in Spanish and have the translation for English for my other kids so that maybe they can get a little bit of taste of what our EB students go through every day with not quite understanding everything that they're hearing and then having to have it translated. And I think that would be a really great way for us to show some empathy for those kids. And so I think that any way that you can include Mote with your EB kids is going to be a win. Like, honestly, it is a tool that has completely changed how I relate to these kids, how I instruct these kids, how I work with these kids. And so if you are someone that has emerging bilingual students on your campus, I am not their teacher, but as the librarian, I see those kids in the library. They come as a class and I work with them, and I want to be able to relate to them, and I want them to see me as somebody who is trying to connect with them. And so using Mote has made the connection stronger between me and those kids in a way that it wouldn't normally. Now, I do speak some Spanish, so that helps, but I have many teachers on my campus that don't speak one word of Spanish, and they really struggle with those kids. Well, that's why I introduced Mote in my toilet talks. I introduced it in a whole class faculty meeting and kind of blew their minds a little bit because they weren't aware that this was something we could use with our kids. Definitely Mote aligns with our ISTE standards. So if you are a ISTE district or you are a district that uses a lot of technology, it aligns perfectly with the empowered learner and the creative communicator, because those are the audiences that we are trying to reach. We are trying to reach, we are being creative, communicating with our EB students this way, and we're empowering them because we're giving them a voice when in the past they wouldn't have had one, right? Without Mote translating and offering those, written translation and taking what the kids are saying and translate into their language, that gives them a voice and it empowers them 100%. And then we use SAMR in my district, which is substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And it's where you take, it's the different levels of how you're using technology in your classroom, right? So if I just took a worksheet and I scanned it and put it in Canvas and sent it to my students, that's a very basic level and it's substitution. And most of my teachers are not using that because we have been using the iPad for over a decade. We are very familiar with it. And so it's like we're trying to get to more modification and redefinition. And so these are just different ways that Mote can be in those different levels. It's also how my teachers get graded when they have walkthroughs from their administrator. And so they need to be able to show which level they're using technology when their administrator comes in and is giving them an evaluation. These are just other ways you can use Mote with all kids, and it's going to be beneficial for our EB students, our GT students, our special education kids, our students that have BIPs for behavior. It's all going to be positive because we are relating to them on their level with our voice. As annoying as it may sound to hear our voice over and over, it definitely, I think, gets the point across in a different way. So I love using Mote because I like to think, how can I be as creative with this as possible? But also, how can I have students connect with me in the library and with their teachers in their classroom. So this is the link to the presentation. Man, that was fast and furious. But if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm so excited that we have so many sessions that are happening about our language learners, because I feel like that is one of the giant benefits of Mote is working with that population. So I am so excited to be able to be here today and to see the presenters that are after me, because I can always get new ideas when it comes to working with this particular population and how we can use Mote in the best way for our kids. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for that. And something that you said a couple times that I just want to end with is that what we do for our EB students, we should really be doing for everyone. I really think that's powerful. And so Mote is not just great for your target audience today, but for all students. So thank you for reminding us of that and sharing all the great ways. I took all notes on science and math because I too am English minded.
Yes.
And so I was like, oh, observations in real time.
Yes.
Like you can say, well, okay. So thank you, because I learned a lot. And so thank you for joining us and sharing. And those of you sticking around, we've got Jennifer Scott coming up, who's just going to enhance this session and talking more about our multilingual learners. So thank you, and go run, use the restroom, get some water, come back, because we'll be starting again in about 2 minutes. All right, next up, I'm so excited to introduce Jennifer Scott, who has 23 years of classroom experience teaching everything, basically, from English to history to ELD, yearbook journalism, webpage development, and science at Compton Junior High with the Bakersfield City School District. And she is a great reminder that even though technology is constantly changing, the purpose behind our use of it has not. And we still need to use technology to break down classroom walls and to spark creativity. So Jennifer is a MEC 16 Google Innovator, MEC 18 coach, and mentor to teachers in Brazil, Spain, the UK, and the US. So thank you, Jennifer, for joining us today. Oh, I think.
Well, hello. How are
Hey.
you guys?
Great. I'm going to hand the stage over to you, and I can't wait to learn from you.
All right. So let me go ahead and click on this, share the screen. If you'll just give me a moment. Here we go. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Springboard Language Learning with Mote. My name is Jennifer Scott, and I'm here to talk about what is Mote. For me, Mote is teacher feedback, but it's not only that. It's also student learning and it's language learning. So I am part of the MEC 16 Innovator Academy, which means I did my academy in Spanish, in my second language. So I understand what it's like to have the most brilliant mind and then to stumble with those words as we are talking in our second or our third languages. So my goal is to make our students feel comfortable, to share that brilliance that's inside of them as they are learning some new vocabulary and grammar. So when we talk about Mote, we're talking about feedback. Here is a screenshot of my newest Google Classroom. And in it, you will see students are leaving me comments in Mote, and I am also giving them comments back. Because one, it's really quicker to record a voice message than type it. And then they get to hear my intent. They get to hear my purpose. And that just creates relationships with my students. Mote is also translation. I am able to go into a Mote and I am able to click this translate button and choose what language I want to read it in. So if I come into my example classroom, let me go into my student, I could listen to the Mote, but I also can click this translate and I can choose the language. So I have students who speak Arabic. They can look at it in Arabic. They can listen to me in English, but confirm what I said in their primary language. And yes, we're going to be talking about ChatGPT because I have that included. I can give directions. So we have a lot of new teachers this year that have a couple of years experience or no experience teaching. And they have students who have just arrived to the United States. And we do not speak Arabic, and we do not speak Tagalog, and we do not speak Spanish, at least all of us. And how are we going to communicate with them? Well, you create a Mote, and you can translate it for the student, or they can translate it for themselves. And we're going to come back to this feature in a little while because I have the greatest idea for this year, and I am so excited to get it started. Students do the translated directions themselves. Now, I recorded some students, and I want you to hear these voices. And you know it didn't work. Oh, that's just not nice. Okay, we'll move on. There's another opportunity to listen to the students. All right. So when we're talking about Mote, notice that we have the free version. Now, the majority of my students are going to use the free version of Mote. My students who are level 2s, 3s, 4s, I'm the one who has the paid version. But I also have the ability to do custom, and this is the one I want to do with my 6th period class, because my 6th period class are my new arrivals. They're my L1 students, the ones who have been in the United States for 3 years, or maybe they've been here longer and their language is not progressing. I am going to focus on this class using the department or team licenses. So, how might we use Mote to promote language learning? Well, let's look at the different categories. We're going to look at reading first. So in this example, this was actually 2 years ago. My students were learning history, and we were focusing on the unicorn of the Arabian Peninsula. What I wanted them to do is I wanted them to listen to me read this passage. And then when they are done, they have to read it back to me. But instead of the entire paragraph, they're only going to read to me one sentence. So I read the entire paragraph. They get to hear the vocabulary. They get to hear the pronunciation. And then they read back to me in one sentence. Now, I think it's amazing that I can record audio for my students. That is super nice. But what about the time? I don't know about you. I'm very overwhelmed with so much to do, and I'm not going to give up my entire weekend for my students, right? So here's a plan. Do you guys see how I have 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th period for English language development? These are my students who are levels 2s, 3s, 4s, and are ready to exit. There are about 28 students who actually are on the verge of exiting, and all we have to do is demonstrate that they have their reading and writing skills at grade level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do peer tutoring, and I'm going to have my students in my other classes record those paragraphs for my students in 6th period so that they can practice it themselves. They can hear their classmates read the paragraphs, and then they can go ahead and make their own Mote. Now, we know that we have Flip and we have Mote. And the question is, which one do I use? Do I only use Mote? Do I only use Flip? And the answer is no, you use both. I use Mote when it comes to speaking short sentences, 30 seconds, we're good. I use Mote if it's one sentence. I use Flip if it's multiple paragraphs or continued conversation. Use both depending on your purpose. Now, how can I use Mote to improve writing? In past years, I've actually demonstrated how to go to the Learning Zone, which is an excellent resource. Thank you, Mote. And using these resources like creative writing. If you go to the link, which is go.bcsd.com/9b, what you're going to see is these directions. And what I like to do is I provided a template for you. And there is a beautiful add-on by Alice Kaler called Docs to Slides. My students have used this to create books. This example right here is from a newcomer. This was a level 1. This was a level 3. They wrote an entire story. They edited it. They revised it. They practiced reading it. And then they had to record each slide using Mote. And then they got to listen to their classmates' stories. It was gorgeous. And here was one story. And unfortunately, when I went to go play the audio today, their voices were not working. But trust me, it is amazing to have them read their stories. Now, let's talk academic speaking. So, here is a lesson that we did in 2022 in our history class, because I've had to teach almost everything. And I always require my students to do a private comment. You can type or you can use Mote. And I want you to tell me 3 facts about the Cherry Blossom Festival. And you know what? Students did it. So you see how this says Hannah Banana? That is actually my sample student. It is my voice. It is my example. So I can show the students, this is where I want you typing. And it was just amazing to hear the students share what they were learning. And it gives me encouragement to continue on with my instruction. Now, last year I had this student. He was absolutely amazing, and I have him back again this year. He always chose Mote when it came to sharing what he learned in our science class. And one thing that I learned from him was the importance of using sentence frames. So do you remember that example where we talked about the orcs, and that's in Saudi Arabia? Well, I decided I need to have sentence frames. So what I did is I went into ChatGPT and I explained, hey, this is the information. This is my class. My students need the first grade level vocabulary. I need sentence frames. Do not provide the answers. And what it did is it actually gave me this writing. I'm like, yay, word bank. Wait a minute, Chatty. You just gave me all the answers. That's not going to help my students. So ChatGPT is never a one answer unless you are named Katie McNamara. Yeah. All right. She's actually really good at writing those. So I come back and I say, I need sentence frames. I need to copy them. And it gave me more. And I went ahead and I asked one more time, and it gave me this beautiful formatting, which I put for the students. So now the students are using Mote and they have a sentence frame. So this is my example here. Here was my prompt that I actually had to go back and have a conversation with. But I want to show you this amazing idea for our newcomers. So we know Mote has so much potential for all of our learners, but especially for our multilingual students. And there is a blog post over on Mote that says you get instant feedback and you get to practice pronouncing the words. So let me show you a lesson we did yesterday in class. Yesterday was our 3rd day of school. I issued out Chromebooks in 6th period. I had the students log in, which means I had to give out username and passwords. And then this picture right here is Go Guardian. The reason why I gave my students the Chromebook was because no matter where they sat in the classroom, I wanted them to see my screen. So you can see that I am sharing my screen, and this student right here is actually on the website learning, and they are looking at my document camera because I believe it's really important to take handwritten notes. And so we're doing a lesson from English 3D Language Launch. And we're brainstorming ideas, and we have sentence frames. How do you describe yourself? My students who've been in the United States for maybe they just arrived or in the past year, they're focusing on the first part. I describe myself as, and put an adjective. My students who've been here longer, I challenged them. And I said, I want you to not only name the adjective, I want you to give more description by adding a verb. And we had a word bank, yay. We have a sentence frame, yay. At the end of that lesson that they hand wrote, this is what we're doing. In your groups, I want you to speak to your classmates. I want you to practice your sentences. So they're looking in their classmates' eyes. They're talking to them. They're shy. Oh boy, are they shy. And then their computers were already on, weren't they? They go into the private comments in Google Classroom and they record themselves. Now, please let this work because I made a video this morning. You see this? Whoops. Okay, fingers crossed that this video is going to work. I just made it.
We started school on Wednesday, and Friday, our third day of school, we had a lesson that used Mote. Let me give you some examples. Hannah Banana is my example student, meaning she's my voice in a student Google Classroom account. This is what I wanted students to do.
I describe myself as intelligent.
Listen to these multilingual students who are level 1 in English.
I describe myself as serious because I am quiet.
I describe myself as smart because Miss Scott make me to say it.
That one was adorable.
I describe myself as intuitive. I describe myself as smart. I describe myself as serious. I describe myself as helpful.
And one more.
I describe myself as serious.
So could you hear those beautiful voices? That was yesterday, 6th period. The students had used Mote for the first time, except you heard one male voice. He was my student from last year, where those sentence frames really matter. Now, what is my plan for this year? We tried to do this 2 years ago, something similar. Unfortunately, in 2021, our district experienced what was called the Zoom draft. Not all of our students ended up going back to school physically here in California. So we had to pull 4 teachers from the classroom to do virtual teaching, which messed up this entire pilot. All right. So what is the idea? The idea is the following. I have a Google Classroom. In this Google Classroom, each week on Monday, we have a math assignment. Tuesday, science. Wednesday, English language arts. Thursday, history. And Friday, PE. Now, what they're going to do is they are going to listen to me because listening is an important skill. Let me see if I can come to my example accounts and show you what I mean. I like to do live demonstrations and watch what happens when you do a live presentation, correct? Come on, come on. Oh, we're having internet issues. Is it working? Yes. All right. So my students have a choice. They can read what I wrote, which a lot of students do choose, or they can listen to my voice.
Jennifer, your audio
Yes.
was great on the last one, but on this one we're having trouble we're unable to hear it.
Oh, okay. So thank you so much for letting me know that. So the audio was simply me giving directions. And then what the students can do is if they want to confirm what they said in their native language, Most of my students will speak Spanish here in California, and they can translate it. Right here, what they're going to do is they're going to record what they learned in math class, and they're going to do it in their primary language because maybe the vocabulary is easier for them and they know this. After they do their first mote, what happens? Are going to translate it because that translate fit button is right here. And then they're going to read it back in English. So primary language, because we want our students to be truly bilingual, multilingual, not just have one language take the place of the other. And then in English, so that they're learning this vocabulary. Now, the part that I like the best is this. Not only are they practicing, but I'm adding their math teacher, their science teacher, their English language arts, their history teacher, their PE teacher, so that they can have conversations. Because oftentimes our teachers feel very inadequate. They feel like, how do I know I'm reaching my student? Now they get to hear their student's voice in their primary language and in English, and that just makes it all, just think of the relationship building and the academic building that we are doing. And I'm ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for sharing. And I really liked how you brought up our division also uses GoGuardian. And I know everyone's always wondering about Chat GPT. So I really liked how you spoke to that and how you use our other resources that a lot of teachers are using already. So thank you for that. I appreciate that because I haven't heard another presenter mention GoGuardian and their resource and their use of it in that same way. And also, can you speak just a little bit more about the peer tutoring aspect? I really liked how you were like, it frees up teacher time.
Yes.
And they can talk to one another. Could you just like spend another minute elaborating a little bit on that?
Well, I was very fortunate and I was able to create a newcomer level 1 class. But the problem by putting them into just one class is that they don't have their colleagues around them to teach them, to help them read. And the ability to use Mote in my second period class so that they can teach the students in sixth period just seems amazing. I don't have to interrupt their classes. They don't have to come to my sixth period. They can just help out using Mote. And I am very protective of my time. And then I say that because it's been a long journey to protect my time. To say, hey, on Saturdays, I'm not doing any schoolwork. I may do an international presentation, but I'm not going to do schoolwork because I need that time to myself. So how can I have students help each other? How can I bring in ChatGPT to make my journey even easier? And that's where all of those combine just make it easier.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And, I remember even, as an elementary school kid and older students would come and read like third and fourth graders. But now you can't always do that, like physically move students out of a class. So it's kind of that same idea, but
Yes.
with the technology that we currently have available, that tutoring, and maybe it brings students together that wouldn't otherwise connect even outside the classroom.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a great idea. And the transcription and translation and how you talk about student choice, like students can choose. I think we are always talking about how important it is for student choice. And we don't always consider that our multilingual like teachers don't necessarily speak the language of all the students, especially when you've got students in your class that probably speak 4 or more different languages. So that transcription piece of Mote, I'm sure you've seen, is super helpful.
And I know if you've ever talked to Efrain Tovar, he says that in our Central Valley here in California, we have 40 different languages. 40. And I cannot learn 40 languages.
Well, thank you for today. Thank you for educating us. And I have a page of notes that I'm going to take away with me. So thanks for joining. And stick around because next up we have Tanya Gonzalez, and she's going to continue this conversation about fostering bilingual education. So stay tuned. Go grab your coffee, your water, take your break, stretch, and we'll be back soon. Thank you.
Excellent. Bye.
Alrighty, I am so excited for our next presenter, Tanya Gonzalez. She is full of energy. And so her creativity is going to shine through on this presentation today. It's our last session for session 3, but we've got session 4 coming on after this. And Tanya is an enthusiastic explorer of EdTech platforms, igniting the students' drive to overcome boundaries in their community and thrive as valuable contributors in their society. So she takes delight in sharing her captivating classroom experiences through social media. If you don't follow her on social media, you definitely need to. You'll get tons of ideas that you can take and use in your own classroom. And she draws inspiration from educators worldwide. So her students love to win challenges and share their love and creativity with their peers. And Tanya embarks on escapades with Adobe Express for education. So she sets her sights on spreading this boundless love of creativity. And I'm so excited to be able to welcome her and let her present to you all today. So let's bring her onto the main stage. Thank you, Tanya.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon from South Texas. How are you?
We're great, and we are so excited. I don't want to eat up any more of your time. So if you'd like to begin presenting, I'm going to remove myself.
Okay, let me share my screen. All right. All right, let me know. Did it pick it up? Let me see. Let me try it one more time.
I think we had it. Let's see.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, let's see. Can you add it one more time?
Yes, of course. Here we go. There you go.
All right, let me know. You see it now? I think we're good to go.
Okay. Perfect. All right, everybody. Good afternoon from South Texas. My name is Tanya Gonzalez, and today I'm here to share with you my love for creativity and bilingual education. So Beyond Borders is our session. We're celebrating diversity, fostering bilingual education, and strong parent communication. So I am so excited to be here. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I've been in this education game for 14 years. I actually was a stay-at-home mommy for about 4 years because I did stay home to take care of my babies. But I love to use technology to embrace everyone and to welcome everybody into my classroom. So I'm always creating neon color, templates and activities to send to my students during the summer so that they can start to get to know their teacher. And this is just one quick example here of how I embrace that and how I show my love in the classroom for my own students. I'm an educator at Fields Elementary, and this is just a little bit about me and what I do in the classroom. So let me get started. Before I do get started, I do want to share that I was that student. I was a student in Reynosa, Tamaulipas, in Ignacio Ramirez. I was there until 3rd grade. And this was back in 1991. My parents brought me to McAllen, Texas, and I was so blessed for the opportunity. But I was so scared, you guys. No sabía nada de inglés. I mean, you would give me pictures and I would survive. You would give me words and I had no idea what was going on. I would hear people talking and I was lost. I was scared that people would make fun of me for the way I would pronounce, certain words until this day. And those of my good friends that hang out with me, they know that I still am learning and I'm still that bilingual, that emergent bilingual student at heart. And it was a very scary experience. And I think this is why this touches so close to me, because I was that student back in 1991, coming to McAllen, Texas with my family, not knowing anything, the culture, the environment, the students. I mean, we didn't know anything. It was all new to us. And it was beyond scary. I mean, if I could go back to those teachers that helped me survive and loved me and loved my parents and communicated in Spanish with my parents right now. I mean, teachers like Miss Angie Cavazos, like my principal at Lincoln Middle School, Miss Rosalinda Martinez, all these individuals would welcome my family and speak our language. And that made a huge difference. So now it's my turn. Now that I'm in the classroom, I try to do that for my babies. We're a familia, we're a family in the classroom, and we embrace that. We love our language, we respect it, and we embrace our English language as well, because they're two powerful languages for the economy that we're currently in. So, I mean, embracing diversity in the classroom, it's an inclusive, it creates inclusive spaces for students. Students feel valued, they feel respected, empowered to contribute their unique experiences and viewpoints. If I give my students that freedom of speech and that freedom to share how they celebrate a Thanksgiving, Dia de los Muertos. I mean, you name it. If I make that classroom safe for them to share, they're going to be empowered to share everything through our classroom experiences. And Mote is one of the platforms out there that is so easy to use, not only in the classroom, but sending out information from the classroom, from the student point of view towards their parents. It's, in a diverse setting, and it reaches educational experiences. It exposes our own students to different perspectives because we're all different and we all should respect each other. It fosters empathy because the minute you open up and you start telling me about yourself, guess what? I learn more from you, just like you will from me. And it creates that empathy in the classroom. It fosters critical thinking. It's cultural awareness of where I come from, what I celebrate, what I think is special to me. And it prepares our students to thrive. It's something that, I mean, as an individual in the classroom still, I can see it in my littles, how they always try to take care of each other once that culture has been set, and it embraces everyone as a whole unit. Again, Mote makes it easy for us to do this. And that's why I am just so happy to share everything I can. As we all know, benefits of being bilingual. I consider myself to be bilingual, bicultural, biliterate. Both languages hold the same power for me because I could be a strong Spanish speaker cuando voy a la casa de mi abuelita y platico con todos y me comunico con ellos, or I could go to my husband's side of the family and we could all speak the language. Again, we embrace it. It increases brain power in our students. It has an academic advantage because guess what? My bilingual powers have me out there in this global market of people calling me to communicate with them in a different language or teach a certain platform in a different language, because there are over 7,100 languages in the world. And not all of them are as popular as our mainstream languages, but we need to be very receptive to what's out there. So again, cross-cultural competency is awareness and understanding of other cultures. I need to be respectful of your culture, just like you need to be respectful of mine. And it's this mutual understanding that starts building in the classroom. You as an educator, you need to take charge of that. And you need to make sure that it gets set in your baby's brains. Everyone's the same. It doesn't matter what color of the rainbow you belong to. It doesn't matter how you smile, how you speak, or how you sound. We don't care where you come from. We want to see your heart. We want to see what you're bringing to us, and we want to learn from you. If you build that type of setting in your classroom will be unstoppable. Our emergent bilinguals are just powerful, super little humans. And this year we did an amazing job with them. And I am hoping next week that we go back to school, well, in 2 more weeks that we go back to school, that the new little faces that I'm already going to meet, that they already know or have an idea of who their crazy teacher is from everything that we've been sending there, and make them feel welcomed. So again, one of the biggest things for me is parent communication. Just like I shared with you in the beginning, my parents did not speak English. I did not speak English. So I had great humans around me during that time, those educators that embraced us. Back in 1991, we were segregated. We were all placed in one classroom, and everybody knew that those were the kids that don't speak English. Ew. And we would get those faces and we would walk to the cafeteria and everybody knew, oh, you guys don't speak English. And at the time, I was too little to understand how powerful I am now. And I was scared, and I would get, my confidence would boost down, and my mom would talk to me about it. And she would tell me, it's okay, Tania, keep going. And échale ganas, mija, aquí estamos. And that support from my family and my teachers communicating towards each other made a huge difference. So again, parents and teachers are 2 of the most important contributors to a student's educational success. Look at me now. I have a master's in education. I'm the first to graduate from my own community here in McAllen, for my family, here in McAllen. And I am so proud. Now we have our younger cousins graduating from college, and we're all embracing that change. Everyone adapted to the opportunity that we were brought to. When parents and teachers communicate well with one another, they are able to support student learning together. Here I'm giving you an example how I'm very, very open. I have an open book with my familia in the classroom. If I'm sick, I literally tell him, familia, estoy enferma. I'm sick. This happened. My baby boy, a couple of months ago, one of my babies, he was choking. We had to take him to the ER. It was a scary sight. And I was very open. I sent out a note to my parents. I told them what was going on, and that makes the family in my classroom even stronger. Our community in our school, we're 94% Hispanic. So our to-go-to language for dual language or bilingual education is Spanish. And as you can see here, Doris and her mommy, they were always in our classroom. We had open doors. We always welcomed them. And it didn't matter that I would send my motes in Spanish or English because my parents could go in there and you see this cute little translate button, they would hit it. And guess what happens? It translates for them. How powerful is that? I mean, I think about it now. Imagine if our parents had that tool back then. Just imagine how much more powerful we would have been. So for me to share this now in 2023 at this beautiful MoteCon is just amazing. I mean, look what we're doing for our kids. We're making them stronger. We're fostering that connection, that communication between parent and teacher. Very important. Now, right now, as you guys know, we all are going back to school, and there's always some type of creative way to get to know your students. What better way to introduce yourself than to actually mail out something to your students? I am very fortunate to work at a school where my principal, Miss Teresa Trella, embraces technology, embraces communication, welcomes parents into our classroom. And guess what? She actually printed all of these with her administrative team. She printed all these on PDF color and mailed them out as part of the welcome back letter to our students. So now when my students get this, they're able to scan, they're able to hear how crazy their teacher is. They're able to go into my collections and view more and learn more about me. If this is something you're interested, I completely encourage you. You can send it via Class Dojo. You can send it on your Remind. You can send it on any website you like, post it to your teacher website. It does not matter. Again, if you do it in English, Mote translates for you. How powerful is that? If you don't have time to translate in Spanish, all you have to do is make sure your Mote QR code is there. And this is what happens. Conoce a la maestra, la señora T. González. Todo sobre mí, mis cosas favoritas. How amazing is that to hear from your teacher before you get to meet her? Our letters were sent out this week. More than likely, our kids are going to be receiving these letters, if not today, by Monday morning. Our community here in McAllen, Texas is very small. We're very united. But they're going to get this welcome letter. Some of them might receive it in English. Some of them might receive them in Spanish. But again, it does not matter because I make sure that Mote helps me translate for them. How powerful is that? I mean, think about the possibilities. Notes going out from the classroom, a good note to a student, pump them up. Señora Salinas, su hijo se sacó un 100 en el examen. Your son got 100 on his test for science. For them to hear our voice. And sometimes we have to be realistic. Sometimes parents are not answering. They might be working 24 hours. They might be working during the time that we try to get a hold of them. And it's an inconvenience sometimes when we have time and they don't, and vice versa. Mote makes it easy to communicate from a teacher point of view to the parent. So again, English, Spanish, does not matter. Any other language is out there and it'll support you. Effective communication builds understanding and trust. My mother had great communication with Miss Angie Cavazos back in 1991 at Navarro Elementary. And I still remember those talks. They would talk after school. They would talk during school. My mother was a parent volunteer. And again, I had that support. I felt welcome. I still remember that some of the parents in that classroom donated a carpet and we all used to sit at this new carpet. I mean, this was also new to me. And again, this is why I have so much love. Sometimes I don't have time to send out or to translate one of the templates that I create via Adobe Express. But guess what? I don't get worried at all because I just record or translate myself via Mote, send it out Class Dojo. My parents will get their newsletter. and they'll listen to me explain that newsletter in Spanish. Our communication through our school district always goes out in English and Spanish. It's never a problem. But a lot of the things that I create in the classroom, sometimes I don't have time to do it. And I'm like, okay, I can send out a Mote. I'll explain. The parent will get it and she'll understand, or he'll understand. So again, effective communication, it will break barriers in your classroom. Another simple way that you can use Mote in the classroom is culture projects. I am all about cultura, and it doesn't matter where you're from. If you're new to this country and you want to teach us your culture, I will adapt my lesson plan to make that student feel welcome in my classroom. It's grace before grace and love before teaching any day for me. I will make sure that every single little human being in my classroom is happy and smiling, because that is how I was brought up. That is what embraces me to continue wanting to be in the classroom. This was created via Adobe Express templates. It was a remix that Claudia Zavala created for us. And it was a way that we could foster student voice and we could share with our parents. The students can share via Mote how they feel about this current Dia de los Muertos day to celebrate the dead. In English, it might sound very strong and scary, but in our culture, it's something beautiful. It's something that we embrace. It's how we remember those who paved the way for us to be here. So again, understanding culture, that diversity, and embracing it, creating a safe place for my students, it all goes within the teaching and the whole familia-oriented environment that we create in the classroom. So simple way to create. And this could also go into Easter. Maybe you could do one for Easter and you can ask them, hey, how many Easter eggs did you find this time? I mean, the possibilities are just endless. It just depends how you as a teacher embrace it. One of the things that we also did this year is we created the De las Madres templates for our moms. And this beautiful lady right here is Hortensia Manrique, my mother, my beautiful sister, and myself, this little chunky monkey right here, that's me. I am all about family unit and respecting and giving everyone their time, their space, whatever it is that they need. And that is something that we create in the classroom. My babies were strong creators. They would create these beautiful templates via Adobe Express, and they were able to showcase that love and affection for their parents. All we had to do was record their Mote, send it to their parents, and their parent would get so excited. I mean, not only were we printing these out through our amazing, colorful printer that I could brag about, but we were also given that communication in the classroom. We would sing the mañanitas in the classroom. That's a tradition to do for day of Mother's Day in Mexico. You would go and take mariachis to your mom's home and you would play las mañanitas. And it's just a simple tradition that we all embrace together and that we all grow from. And I mean, I see Sophia and Natasha here, and I'm going to miss them so much. This was such a growth year for me as an educator because I got to teach them and I learned so much from them. We embraced technology. We embraced our culture. We loved each other. Yes, we all had our ups and downs throughout the classroom, but because those expectations of, you know, our diversity and embracing it and respecting each other and empowering them to learn at their own space or time, that made a huge difference for us. So here it is, you guys. Mote fosters that culture. Mote gives us the tools to communicate to our parents, to send out notes when some of our students do well on a test. It's all in that little cute purple icon that you send out to them. They're able to click a link, listen to your voice, get to know you better, and reply to your response with, gracias, maestra. Thank you, teacher. You're making a difference. Those are the things that I go to Fields Elementary to teach. I share my love for them, not only in our classroom, but, you know, in society. And I want them to become productive members of this community. I want our community to continue improving. And these individuals in my last year's third grade classroom are going to do that for us. Amplify student voice. Thank you, Mote. You've done that for me this entire year, and I hope to embrace it this coming year as well, because this is one proud teacher to use Mote any day. And with that said, familia to me is the biggest love that I could share with you. If I meet you, you will become my friend, because that's how I was raised. That's how I love my students. I want to thank you, Alex, for being here and giving me the opportunity to join this amazing MoteCon. My friend Fonz, thank you so much for your support. And guys at MoteCon, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit of the creativity side that we have shared in our classroom through Mote. Thank you, Mote, for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It was great to have your energy closing us out for this session. And I have to say, when I started in education, I was in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. And so we had probably a very similar demographic, and so many of our families were newcomers. And I have been at 4 different schools in another state, and those newcomer families were the most engaged families in our school, and they really created such a community. And so Mote, if I had had Mote 20 years ago to help me communicate with these families, it would have been a great tool. And so these families want to take part in their students' education.
And they're very receptive. They're very loving to what we provide for them. Some of us come from a place where there's no AC or heater in our classroom. The windows are broken. There's a broken desk. And we walk into this beautiful classroom, and you see that there's light and that there's AC. Those things that a lot of people take, for granted. Those were the first things. I mean, they were giving me food in the cafeteria. It was an amazing world for me to discover. And that's the part of me that I want to share with my students every single year, because that made a huge difference for me. And again, Mote's just a platform of the wonderful, education tools that we have as teacher toolbox out there that embraces that for us and give us the capability to communicate with some of my parents. You have to realize some of my parents can't read, they can't write, but they can listen. And your voice holds a lot of power. You can hear my love for education when I speak. I can hear your excitement about how you would have loved to communicate with those parents. So imagine that love that we share with them and how they hear it, how receptive they are to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And thank you for bringing your energy and your beautiful graphics.
Thank you.
They are stunning. And so thank you so much for taking your time. And Will's going to help us conclude, and I'm sure say thank you himself.
Absolutely.
Here on stage.
Hey, yeah, that was amazing. Tanya, I always love hearing these stories that bring to life so much better. As you say, hearing it from you is better. I read lots of emails from users, and I sometimes get the privilege to talk to the users as well about their experiences. And I think the way you describe how you work with your with the student parents and their experiences, it's very gratifying. I'm gonna share. Everyone in our team is going to love watching this. So thank you so much. Really appreciated it. And thank you for everyone contributing. This is a really interactive and fun session. So that is drawing us to a close. I want to thank Erin. Erin can come back out here for a minute. You've done an amazing job hosting today. So thank you very much. Really was brilliant. We're so lucky to have fantastic Mote ambassador leaders like Erin as part of the family here. So that being said, we're going to be off now for a few hours. Come back later today when we've got another amazing MoteCon session led by Rick. So take a break, go eat a meal, do whatever you need to do. But I hope you'll join us back later today. So from me and from Erin and from Tanya, thanks so much, and we'll see you all soon.